assumptions show up for me in a lot of different ways. Here's a small example of how that can look for me. In May of 2020, I moved from Los Angeles to San Diego, and because of COVID times and the timing of it all, I ended up signing that lease without seeing that apartment. So I just had photos, signed lease, a key, moved in. But you might be surprised, there were some cool aspects of it. I had a balcony, which I loved, fireplace, vaulted ceilings in the dining room and living room area, and then also an AC unit that was in the wall in the dining room, like a wall unit. Great. And if you've ever lived in San Diego, more than 8 miles from the coast, it can get pretty hot during the summertime, especially the late summer. So we get to that time period, I got to turn that AC on, and I waited. And I waited. I can feel a little bit of air coming out, especially in the dining room. It felt kind of cold, but it wasn't getting very far. I didn't know what to do. I just assumed maybe it's the vaulted ceilings. Maybe it's because the building's really hot and this AC unit can only do so much. My living room's too far away. I don't know. There's things I just didn't know. I just assumed that maybe this is all it can do and this is what's going to happen. So I did what I could do. I spent $300 on a portable AC unit. Took that to different rooms in my apartment, so like the living room, the bedroom at times, box fans, whatever I could to kind of make it work. Fast forward about 2.5 years, I had a couple neighbors that moved in, and I spoke with them, and I saw them getting a new AC unit being installed, and asked them about it. I said, "Hey, you're getting a new AC unit, did yours just not turn on?" And they said, "No, ours turned on, it just didn't feel like it was getting very cold." And I was like, I felt like that, but I wasn't for sure. Fast forward another couple weeks, they come by, and they're like, "Yeah, Damon, that's not working like it should. You probably should say something." Again, I'm still a little bit reluctant because I'm like, what do I know? What do they know? So I asked, I said, "Hey, can you guys come by and just at least test it out?" And they finally came by and tested it out. I was like, "Yeah, actually, you do need a new one." Gave me a new one. Great, worked perfectly. Now, after $300 workaround in about 2.5, almost 3 years, so that's how one way it did show up for me. It's assumptions just distort my reality. Now when I look back at it and I reflect on it a little bit, it really wasn't about the air conditioning unit. It was really about the beliefs that I carried. Things like, don't be a bother. Like, you don't need to ask about that. It's not harming anyone else. It's what it's supposed to be. Like, what makes you think it's supposed to be more than that for what you're giving. A lot of self-worth things that during that time period in my life I had to do a lot of work in myself, and still do every day. It doesn't go away. It was just something that I had to really work on. But that's what assumptions do. They distort my reality. It also it keeps me from discovering things that I probably should already have, which is part of the reason why you're seeing some of the stuff happening now, is that I'm kind of breaking away from some of those assumptions that I've had in the past. So yeah. But in this third installment of the book, The 4 Agreements, Don't Make Assumptions, I wouldn't take it as an order or a mandate. Don't make assumptions. Well, yeah, everyone says that, right? Don't make assumptions. But really kind of understanding what's going on with us, or what's going on with myself when I make assumptions. That's how I took it. So what's happening in my mind? What am I thinking about? Why do I make assumptions? Because they happen a lot when I actually started to reflect. And we'll talk a little. I want to share a few of those with you here. Sometimes I feel like assumptions are based on those kind of unspoken expectations, right? I know you might be able to relate to this. You have a friend or partner or whoever, and you wholeheartedly believe they know I like this, they know I dislike this, they know I don't like showing up late to things. That's not me. I'm probably on the other side. Let's say that was you. I don't like showing up late for things. So you assume that everyone knows that about you. right? And then you have a friend that comes over, they're late, causes you to be late, and now you're angry with that person, right? It's like, God, this person just, oh, it's an unspoken expectation that I had, or you may have, with them. One of the things I think about is, I don't get frustrated by it, but I try to take off my shoes now when I go inside a bit. I just found after cleaning my floors for multiple years that it might help. Take off my shoes. And there could be an unspoken expectation I would have for others to do the same. Now, I had to get over that part, because if I'm not going to ask, I can't blame anyone for it. So I have to get better at asking. But I used to assume, I'm like, wouldn't people just take off their shoes or come into people's homes, right? No, that's a huge assumption I would make. I know that's probably simple, but even more, it would be something along the lines of, in relationships, I would have an assumption that this person wants to be a part of like what I'm doing, or wants to hear about how I'm like succeeding at my job, or how I'm working hard on a certain project, and I would assume that that's what they would want, right? Not thinking about what's going on in their lives or anything like that. I would just assume that, like, but if you care enough, you'll just ask, right? Not thinking like, maybe I wonder why they don't ask. I wonder if there's something that's going on for them. Maybe they've asked before in previous relationships and something happened. And instead of being curious, I would just make that assumption, and then I would just say, well, this person doesn't care about me. I'm not going to proceed forward with anything with this person anymore, right? That's how that assumption came and showed up, where I could have just shared my kind of hopes or expectations I would like to have with certain things, or even just be curious and understand what's going on for them to be better at that. But instead, I chose assumptions, which definitely ruined some relationships in my life. So I know that's part of assumptions for me too, is that I picked up is that sometimes those are just unspoken expectations that I have. And I could be better at just sharing those things instead of telling myself some crazy story. Another thing that I picked up from reading Don't Make Assumptions in this chapter was around humans. And I didn't really think about this, but humans really want answers. We do. I like answers. I like to have answers for everything. I like to figure things out. I like to solve puzzles. Now, that can also take us down such a road, makes us really stressful. But what he hits on in the book is that we do want answers, even if they're the wrong answers, just because having an answer feels safe, gives us certainty, than not having an answer at all. So we could assume that this person meant this, or this meant this, or assume that a way of speaking or an interaction means something, even if it's not true, even if it's not positive or helpful for us, but it gives us an answer and we don't have to sit in that uncertainty, right? So for example, I would have a friend that let's say I was shooting them a text, and they would say, hey, yeah, I'm gonna give you a call back at this time or whatever, and they don't, and I'll hit them up and they don't respond, and I would make a full assumption. It's like, they don't care. They just don't care. You probably can hear a theme from what I say nowadays. They don't care. So I would just make that assumption over everything else, because even I didn't know if it was true or not. I could care less, because I didn't have to stew in a bunch of different what ifs. It was just, there's the answer, I'm gonna leave it at that and go. I could have left the answer as like, oh, they're just upset and doesn't or they're dealing with something. I could have made all kinds of other assumptions, right? Or I could have just let the uncertainty be there and just wait and just be okay with like not knowing. I think that's probably the hardest thing to do, is being okay with not knowing and not having the answer. Because again, we're wired to that it feels safe with the certainty. Even when you go to the place of like, this is a bad, toxic environment or relationship, sometimes that certainty feels better than the uncertainty of potential love or healthy relationship. I know I've done that. Another thing I kind of picked up from assumptions as well that's from the book is that we, or I would say even I, can assume that others think, judge, or even harm in the same way that I do, right? Which also holds me back from like being vulnerable, being expressive, or even asking for help, right? Because maybe some of the things that I would think of like, oh wow, I would think that that's not a great way of operating, or that was a poor decision, you shouldn't have never done that. I would assume that everyone would say that same thing. So, for example, I've gotten in trouble before. Some people may know, some people may not know. But definitely, I've been to jail before, right? I've been arrested before, and I held back on like asking for help from the people that I probably should have asked for help from, like family and things like that. But I didn't do that, and I didn't do that because I assume that, hey, if you make a mistake, you need to suffer through it, deal with it yourself. That was just a belief I had. Just assumed everyone else was going to feel the same way that I probably would have felt at that time. When in all actuality, I know I would help other people, but like I just had an assumption that everyone else wouldn't. So I felt everyone thought the way I did, when most people probably didn't. And again, suffer through more than I probably needed to. Probably could have got help a lot faster, a lot easier. I'm not saying that everything would have been, rainbows and glory and nice and happy. But when I do ask for help, as I do now, a bit more now, it actually turned out a lot better. Yeah, turned out a whole lot better. So that assumption definitely shaped my reality, put me in a place where I didn't need to be for a long time. Yeah. So we think about all these things as like, all right, well, these are all these different ways that we can make assumptions and how assumptions can show up in our lives, and why I make assumptions, right? How do I change that? How do I change it, right? So the book kind of touches on is how I like to put it, is that, curiosity, open curiosity is a counter, right? It's a counter to assumptions. The opposite of assumptions isn't certainty. It's not certainty. It's curiosity. Because curiosity keeps the story unfinished long enough for the truth to show up. That's how I look at it. Give myself an opportunity to allow the truth to really show up, whatever that is. Because assumptions, I've learned, aren't helping me very much. Now we all know that it doesn't help us. I really thought about like where it really shows up in my life on from a little scale all the way up to something larger that's probably most people wouldn't even know about. But curiosity, having open curiosity and just being vulnerable and asking that question, it'll help me. So curiosity is a counter to that, how to counter those assumptions. And as I was prepping for this particular episode, one of the things I was thinking about, because this was actually really cool, I'll share something that's super meaningful to me. This experience has given me a lot of meaningful moments, including the person who gave me this awesome thing behind me here. Recently, I had a friend of mine who I've known for quite some time now. We reconnected, and when I think of, and again, these are the assumptions I have. When I think about this podcast brand, think about Manifold. I did sit down and do a lot of work and like thinking about the name, thinking about like what it meant, like why it means this and things like that. That was something that's super important to me. I also assumed that like, no one else has to feel that way. Like I'm going to share that with people. I hope that they feel this way. I hope they can like relate to it. But no one has to like feel that, or no one has to think that. And I definitely didn't think I had anything. I would say like people that I knew would maybe watch a video or two or see a short form clip somewhere and be like, hey Damon, I saw your video, cool. And that's all I get. But this particular friend, not only did she say she watched the video, or one of my videos, she said the name. She said Manifold. And it made me pause. It actually meant an enormous amount to me, because it means it's actually, to me that means it it's something worth saying, that what I'm building is worth saying, what I'm talking about is worth being heard, and what I'm saying is matters. Not that I didn't think that myself already, I just kind of put a little bit of validation behind it. And so the assumptions that I realized as I was thinking about this episode, the assumptions that I do make about the work that I'm even doing right this moment, right? Like last assumption I'll give you. Damon, this is an assumption I'll tell myself. Damon, don't ask, you see all these people that, ask people to like and subscribe and comment and share, blah, 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 right? And I was just like, I'm not going to do that yet. Like, I have, 2 videos or whatever? I don't think it's right to do or whatever. I don't know. Some crazy assumption and belief that I have. And it's actually really funny because that's just feeds right back into what I'm talking about here. Is the assumptions aren't helping me and I'm not allowing myself to help myself or allow others to show up for me as well. When I have a friend that I didn't even have to ask and she just, yeah, Manifold thing. Yeah, it's right, Manifold. I'm like, oh my God, how did you know the name of it? That's amazing. That is amazing. I'm so just pumped about that. So I'm gonna get rid of an assumption right here, right now, live with you all that may be watching. I'm not gonna ask you to like or subscribe or anything like that. I ask you to engage authentically, however it is that you engage. If you think this is awesome that you want to share with a friend, share with a friend. I do that sometimes. I just like share with my friends. I'm not the best at liking things on social media. So I'm not going to ask you to like if that's not something you do. I'm not going to ask you to comment if that's not something you do. If you feel compelled and you want to do something, that's great. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe again if that's not what you do. I ask you to engage however you feel is good for you. Maybe it's just watching it and ingesting it, from afar and without any further action, and that's good too. So I'm going to make that ask. I'm going to make that ask based on what makes sense for you. Now, we all know what helps channels, things like that, subscribe and comment, blah, blah, blah. So you do know that. Do it if you feel like it. Totally cool. All I'm asking now is that, hey, remember the name, and that's good enough for me. All right. So that is the 3rd agreement of the 4 agreement series. Don't make assumptions. I appreciate you being here. This is more of a fly by the seat of my pants episode, which I wanted to try with a different setup, different set going on here. But don't make assumptions. The last one we're going to be doing for the 4 agreement series, wrap this up, it's a little longer than I wanted it to be, but that's okay. The last one is going to be the 4th agreement. Always do your best. So I'm going to wrap that up. And again, it may sound trite, it may sound cliche, but I tell you, it's a different perspective than what we think it is. But always do your best. So join me for that one. I'll see you there. Thank you for being here for this one. And love to hear any feedback, comments you do have. But otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.